In the records of ancient literature, there exists a collection of texts that transcends time, carrying with them the weight of millennia-old wisdom and interest. Among these respected works is the Book of Daniel. But within the pages of this book lies a lesser-known section known as the Additions to Daniel. What secrets lie buried within the ancient text? And what exactly is the mystery of Bel and the dragon? Join us as we unravel the additions of the Book of Daniel. Daniel and friends in Babylon. In the 3rd year of Joachim's rule as king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, marched to Jerusalem and surrounded it, taking control. It's said that God allowed Nebuchadnezzar to capture Joachim and seize some sacred items from the temple, which he then took back to Babylon as spoils of war. Nebuchadnezzar then ordered his top official, a eunuch named Ashpenaz, to select some of the brightest and most promising young men from among the captives in Jerusalem. These youths were to be groomed for service in the Babylonian court. Nebuchadnezzar specifically wanted those who were not only physically flawless, but also intelligent, wise, and discerning, capable of serving in his royal court. These chosen ones, among them Daniel, Ananias, Azariah, and Mishael, were given new Babylonian names by Ashpenaz. Daniel became known as Bull Chaser, Ananias as Cedric, Mishael as Misak, and Azariah as Abednego. Additionally, Nebuchadnezzar ordered that these youths receive 3 years of intensive education and training in the Babylonian language, customs, and knowledge. During this time, they were to be provided with the choicest food and wine from the king's table, to ensure they were well nourished and fit to serve in his court. After this period of preparation, they would be presented before the king for his service. Daniel made a firm decision in his heart that he would not eat the rich food and wine provided by the king, as he believed it would go against his principles. He spoke to the chief of the palace attendants, asking for permission to stick to a simpler diet. Interestingly, Daniel had already gained favor and kindness from the chief of the attendants, likely due to his character and conduct. The chief of the attendants expressed concern for Daniel, fearing the king's displeasure if Daniel and his companions appeared less healthy or vibrant than the other young men who were partaking of the king's food. Daniel, however, proposed a solution, a test period of 10 days during which he and his friends would eat only vegetables and drink water. After this time, their appearance would be compared to that of the other young men who had been dining on the king's fare. The chief of the attendants agreed to this arrangement, and they carried out the plan. During the 10 days, Daniel and his friends stuck to their simple diet, while others continued to enjoy the king's lavish provisions. At the end of the trial period, the chief of the attendants observed the results and found that Daniel and his companions appeared just as healthy and vigorous, if not more so, than those who had been indulging in the king's food. So, the chief continued to allow them to eat according to their chosen diet. After 10 days had passed, the faces of the 4 children looked healthier and livelier than even the king's table-fed youngsters. They didn't eat fancy supper or drink fine wine anymore. Instead, they had simple food like pulse and water. But surprisingly, these children, with their humble diet, were gifted by God with exceptional understanding and wisdom. They became experts in all sorts of learning and knowledge. One of them, Daniel, even could interpret dreams and visions. When the appointed time arrived and the king summoned them, they were brought before Nebuchadnezzar by the chief eunuch. The king conversed with them, and it became evident that none could match Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah in intelligence and insight. They stood out among the crowd, their eyes shining with wisdom. In every test of intellect and knowledge that the king presented, these 4 youths surpassed even the most learned enchanters and sorcerers in the entire kingdom. Daniel's brilliance continued to shine until the reign of King Cyrus began. Nebuchadnezzar's strange dream and Daniel's revelation. In the 2nd year of Nebuchadnezzar's rule, he had a very strange dream that left him feeling quite bewildered. It was so puzzling that he couldn't even sleep properly afterward. So, he decided to summon all sorts of mystical experts, enchanters, magicians, sorcerers, and Chaldeans to help him understand what the dream meant. When they arrived, Nebuchadnezzar told them about his troubling dream, expecting them to interpret it for him. He demanded that they not only interpret the dream, but also tell him what he dreamt. This request threw them into a panic because they knew it was nearly impossible. Nebuchadnezzar warned them that if they couldn't tell him both the dream and its interpretation, he would have them punished severely. However, if they succeeded, he promised those great rewards and honor. The Chaldeans, feeling the pressure, pleaded with the king to just tell them the dream, and they would figure out the interpretation. But Nebuchadnezzar wasn't buying it. He saw through their delay tactics and suspected they were stalling for time. He believed they were just trying to come up with some made-up story. In a fit of rage, Nebuchadnezzar threatened to destroy all the wise men of Babylon if they couldn't fulfill his demand. The Chaldeans, feeling helpless, admitted that what the king asked for was beyond their abilities. They explained that no one on earth, not even the most powerful king, had ever made such an impossible request of them. They insisted that only the gods themselves could reveal such a thing. This enraged Nebuchadnezzar even more, and he ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon. The king's decree was issued, commanding the execution of the wise men. They began to carry out the orders, seeking out Daniel and his companions to put them to death. However, Daniel, wise and clever, spoke up with prudence. He advised the captain of the royal guard, questioning the sudden and forceful command from the king. Eric, the captain, conveyed Daniel's concerns to the king. Daniel then pleaded for time to interpret the decree. Returning home, he gathered his friends, Anemias, Misael, and Asura, to seek mercy from the Almighty, praying for guidance in unraveling the mystery. In a divine revelation during the night, the mystery was unveiled to Daniel. Overflowing with gratitude, he blessed the God of heaven for his infinite wisdom and understanding, acknowledging the divine power over all earthly matters. With newfound clarity, Daniel approached the king's appointed executor, Arya, affirming his readiness to interpret the decree before the king. Arya, recognizing Daniel's exceptional insight, presented him to the king as the one capable of revealing the interpretation. The king spoke to Daniel, whose other name was Belteshazzar, asking if he could tell him about a dream he had and explain its meaning. Daniel replied, saying that the wise men, magicians, enchanters, and soothsayers couldn't unravel the mystery the king wanted to know. He explained that there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and this God had revealed to King Nebuchadnezzar what would happen in the future through dreams and visions. Daniel clarified that he didn't have special wisdom beyond others, but God had chosen to reveal the interpretation of the dream to him so that the king could understand what was in his heart. He then described the dream to the king, an enormous and awe-inspiring image with a head of gold, arms, and chest of silver, belly and thighs of brass, legs of iron, and feet partly of clay. Daniel explained how a stone, not cut by human hands, struck the image's feet, causing it to crumble into powder, which the wind scattered. The stone then grew into a great mountain, filling the earth. Daniel interpreted the dream, saying that the king represented the head of gold, symbolizing his powerful kingdom. After his reign, lesser kingdoms would rise, each symbolized by different materials of decreasing value. The fourth kingdom, represented by iron, would be the strongest, crushing everything in its path. The feet and toes of mixed iron and clay signified a divided kingdom, partly strong and partly brittle. In this vision, there will be a kingdom with both strong and weak aspects, like iron mixed with clay, where some parts will be sturdy while others are fragile. People from different backgrounds will be involved, but they won't truly unite, much like how iron and clay don't blend. During the reign of these kings, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never fall, unlike other kingdoms that will eventually crumble. This new kingdom will surpass and overcome all others, standing forever. In the vision, A stone not made by human hands breaks apart the earthly materials symbolizing different kingdoms, revealing God's plan. King Nebuchadnezzar recognized the significance of Daniel's interpretation and honored him, acknowledging the power of Daniel's God. As a result, Daniel was greatly rewarded and given a high position in Babylon, overseeing its affairs while remaining in the king's palace.
Now I know that your God is above all other gods and kings, because he gave you the power to explain this mystery. I will make you chief of all my wise men, and governor of the province of Babylon.
The work will be better done, my king.
The brave trio's prayer in the fire. Once upon a time, 3 courageous young souls found themselves immersed in a blazing inferno. Instead of cowering in fear, they stood tall amidst the flames, singing praises to God and honoring his name. Among them, Azariah rose, his voice echoing in the fiery furnace as he lifted his prayer to the heavens. With reverence he spoke, "Blessed are you, O Lord, the God of our ancestors. Your name shines with eternal glory, for you are just in all your deeds, true in all your works, and righteous in your judgments." With humility, Azariah acknowledged the sins of his people, confessing their transgressions and their failure to heed God's commandments. He recognized that their suffering was a consequence of their disobedience, yet he pleaded for mercy, invoking the covenant made with their forefathers. "We beseech thee, O Lord," Azariah implored, "do not forsake us forever. Remember your covenant. Do not withdraw your mercy from us. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your chosen ones, and fulfill your promise to multiply their descendants like the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore." In their moment of despair, Azariah and his companions sought solace in the faith of their ancestors, acknowledging their shortcomings while clinging to the hope of divine redemption. They lamented their diminished state and the absence of traditional offerings, yet their faith remained steadfast, trusting in God's boundless mercy. Thus, amidst the flames and the darkness, the song of the 3 children resounded as proof of their unwavering faith and their belief in the power of prayer. However, even though we may have made mistakes, let us come before you with sincere hearts and humble spirits, seeking acceptance. Our offerings, though not grand like those of rams, bullocks, or fat lambs, are made with sincerity and devotion. May our sacrifices be pleasing to you, O Lord, on this day. We place our trust in you without doubt or confusion, for we follow you wholeheartedly, with reverence and a desire to seek your presence. We do not ask for punishment or harsh judgment, but instead, we plead for your kindness and mercy, O Lord. Save us through your wondrous deeds, and may your name be glorified. Let those who oppose your servants be put to shame, O Lord, and let their strength be broken. Show them, Lord, that you alone are the true God, mighty and glorious above all. As the king's servants stoked the furnace with intense heat, the flames rose high, engulfing even those who had cast the faithful into the fire. Yet, amidst the roaring blaze, the angel of the Lord descended with Azarias and his companions, and miraculously, the flames did not harm them. The furnace, once a symbol of destruction, became a place of peace as the angel quenched the fire with a gentle breeze, sparing the faithful from harm. Then these 3 spoke together, their voices harmonizing like one, praising and honoring God within the fiery furnace. "Blessed are you, O Lord, the God of our ancestors, deserving of praise and glory above all. Your holy name is exalted and praised forever. In your majestic temple, your glory shines, and you are exalted above all. You who dwell in the depths, enthroned upon the cherubim, are worthy of eternal praise. Your presence fills the heavens, and your splendor is glorious forever. All creations of the Lord, from angels to the heavens themselves, join in blessing and praising him. From the mighty powers of nature to the smallest dewdrop, From the spirits of God to the elements of fire and ice, all sing praises to the Lord. Let the earth, with all its abundance, bless and exalt the Lord forever. Let Israel, its priests, and its people, as well as the righteous and humble of heart, lift their voices in praise. Let Ananias, Azarias, and Misael rejoice, for the Lord has delivered them from death and the flames. Give thanks to the Lord, for his mercy endures forever. Let all who are devoted to him give thanks and praise, for his mercy knows no end. Thus ends the Song of the Three Children, a testament to the enduring mercy and greatness of God. The wicked plot against Susanna. In Babylon, there lived a man named Joachim, who was quite wealthy. He had a stunning garden attached to his house, where many Jews would gather because he was respected among them. Joachim was married to a woman named Susanna, who was not only beautiful but also deeply devout, raised by righteous parents who instilled in her the teachings of the law of Moses. In that same year, 2 elders were appointed as judges, as prophesied, to oversee matters in Babylon. However, these elders did not uphold justice, but rather indulged in wickedness, abusing their power. They frequently visited Joachim's house, where people came seeking legal advice. Susanna, unaware of their sinister intentions, would often take walks in her husband's garden during the noon hours. The elders, seeing her beauty, were consumed by lust for her. They deliberately turned away from righteousness, ignoring divine judgment, and allowed their desires to cloud their minds. Despite their mutual infatuation with Susanna, the elders kept their desires hidden, ashamed to confess their sinful thoughts to one another. Instead, they secretly watched her day after day, waiting for an opportunity to act on their wicked impulses. Finally, one day, as Susanna left the garden to return home for lunch, one elder suggested to the other that they should leave as well. However, their intentions were far from innocent. So, after they left each other, they both turned back and returned to the same place. Then they discussed why they felt so strongly attracted to her. Eventually, they agreed on a time to meet her alone. And it just so happened that while they were keeping watch, she went into the garden with only 2 maids. She wanted to freshen up in the garden because it was hot, and no one else was there except for the 2 elders, who were hiding and observing her. She asked her maids to bring her oil and washing balls, and to close the garden doors for privacy. The maids followed her instructions and left through private doors to fetch the items she requested. Unbeknownst to them, the elders were hiding and watching the whole time. When the maids were out of sight, the 2 elders approached her and said, "Look, the garden doors are closed, and no one can see us. We love you and want to be with you. If you don't agree, we'll accuse you of being with a young man and sending your maids away." Susanna let out a heavy sigh, feeling trapped from all sides. "I feel cornered," she admitted. "If I obey your demand, it means death for me. But if I refuse, I can't escape your power over me. I'd rather face whatever consequences you have in store for me than sin in the eyes of the Lord." Her words echoed with desperation, her voice breaking as she cried out. The 2 elders, unmoved by her plea, persisted in their accusation against her. One of the elders swiftly opened the garden door, setting off a commotion among the household servants, who heard Susanna's distress. They hurriedly entered through a hidden entrance to witness the unfolding events. As the elders presented their case, the servants were taken aback, feeling a deep sense of shame. Susanna, whose reputation had always been untarnished, now found herself at the mercy of baseless accusations. The following day, as the community gathered, Joachim, Susanna's husband, stood among them, unaware of the sinister intentions harbored by the 2 elders. These men, driven by malicious intent, persisted in their quest to condemn Susanna to death. In front of the assembled crowd, they demanded the presence of Susanna, the wife of Joachim, along with her entire family. And so, Susanna appeared, accompanied by her father, mother, children, and relatives, unaware of the perilous trial awaiting her. Susanna's trial and Daniel's justice. Susanna, a woman of exceptional delicacy and breathtaking beauty, found herself in a harrowing situation. Wicked men, consumed by envy of her loveliness, demanded that her face be uncovered, despite her modesty. As her friends and onlookers gazed upon her, tears welled in their eyes. Amidst the crowd, the two elders stepped forward, placing their hands upon her head. Despite her distress, Susanna, with tears streaming down her cheeks, lifted her eyes toward the heavens, placing her trust in the Lord. With solemn voices, the elders recounted a tale of deceit and betrayal. They claimed that while strolling alone in the garden, Susanna had been accosted by a young man who had hidden himself away. They alleged that he had taken advantage of her, despite her resistance. Although witnesses had tried to intervene, the man's strength proved too great, and he fled, leaving Susanna at their mercy. Yet, when pressed to reveal the identity of her assailant, Susanna remained steadfast in her silence. This defiance only served to convince the assembly of the elders' version of events. Without further ado, they condemned Susanna to death. Thus, in a cruel twist of fate, the very beauty that had captivated onlookers now became the cause of Susanna's unjust condemnation. Susanna cried out loudly, addressing the eternal God who knows all secrets and sees all things before they happen. She pleaded, saying, "You know they have lied about me, plotting false accusations. I face death for crimes I never committed, concocted by these men's malice." The Lord heard her cries. As she was about to be executed, a young man named Daniel, filled with the Holy Spirit, spoke out boldly, proclaiming his innocence in her bloodshed. The crowd turned to him in confusion, asking for clarification. Daniel stood firm amidst them, rebuking their rash judgment. He questioned their wisdom, asking if they were so foolish as to condemn an innocent woman without proper examination or knowledge of the truth. He urged them to return to the place of judgment, pointing out the falsehood in the accusations against Susanna. The people hurried back, heeding his words. The elders, recognizing the honor bestowed upon Daniel by God, invited him to sit among them and explain. Daniel suggested separating the accusers, promising to conduct a thorough examination. And so, they were divided, awaiting Daniel's scrutiny. He beckoned one of them over and spoke to him, saying, "Oh, you who have grown old in wickedness, now your sins from the past have been exposed. You have pronounced false judgments, condemning the innocent and letting the guilty go free. Yet, the Lord declares that you shall not slay the innocent and righteous." If he truly witnessed what he claimed, he should tell him by asking under which tree he saw them together. The man replied, "Under the mastic tree." Daniel responded, "You have lied, and your lie will be your undoing. For even now, the angel of God has received the decree to divide you in two." So he set him aside and ordered the other to be brought forward. Addressing him, Daniel said, "You descendant of Canaan, not of Judah, beauty has misled you, and lust has corrupted your heart. This is how you have treated the daughters of Israel, and they, out of fear, have associated with you. But the daughter of Judah would not tolerate your wickedness. So tell me, where were they when you saw them together?" Daniel inquired. The man hesitated before answering. "They were under a big whole tree." Daniel's eyes narrowed as he warned, "You've spun a dangerous tale, my friend. The angel of God stands armed with a sword, ready to strike you down for your falsehoods." Gasps filled the air as the crowd realized the severity of the situation. They erupted into praise for God, who shields those who place their faith in Him. In a swift turn of events, the crowd turned against the two elders, their faces twisted with anger. Daniel had exposed their lies with their own words, leaving no room for doubt. According to the ancient laws of Moses, the elders faced the same fate they had schemed for their innocent neighbor. Justice was swift, and they met their end that very day. In the aftermath, relief washed over Chelius and his wife as they thanked God for sparing their daughter Susanna from harm. Joined by Susanna's husband Joachim and their entire family, they celebrated her innocence. From that moment on, Daniel's reputation soared among the people, admired for his wisdom and integrity. Daniel's faithful stand. Long ago, in the time when Daniel walked the earth, there was a story of great intrigue and faith. King Astyages, ruler of a mighty land, passed away, leaving Cyrus of Persia to inherit his kingdom. Daniel, a wise and respected figure, found favor with the new king and was esteemed above all his companions. In those days, the people of Babylon worshipped an idol named Bel. Each day they offered 12 measures of the finest flour, 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine to this idol. The king himself bowed before Bel, worshipping it faithfully, but Daniel, true to his beliefs, refused to worship Bel. When questioned by the king, he explained that he could not worship idols crafted by human hands. Instead, Daniel worshipped the living God, the creator of heaven and earth, who held dominion over all living beings. The king, puzzled by Daniel's defiance, asked him if he did not believe Bel to be a living god, pointing to the lavish offerings made to the idol each day. However, Daniel remained steadfast, affirming his faith in the true living God. This tale highlights the clash between belief in man-made idols and faith in the divine creator. Daniel's unwavering conviction serves as a timeless example of loyalty to one's principles, even in the face of societal pressure and temptation. Daniel smiled at the king and calmly spoke, "Your Majesty, do not be misled. This statue may appear impressive on the outside, crafted from clay and brass, but it possesses no life within. It has never partaken of food or drink." The king's anger flared at Daniel's words, prompting him to summon his priests. He demanded they identify the mysterious entity supposedly consuming their offerings, threatening death if they failed. However, if they could prove that the statue, called Bel, was the culprit, then Daniel would face the consequences of blasphemy. Daniel accepted the challenge, agreeing to the king's terms. Together, they entered Bel's temple, where the priests instructed the king to prepare a feast and seal the chamber tightly. The priests assured him that if they were not found in the temple the next day, either Bel had consumed everything or Daniel was spreading falsehoods. Unbeknownst to the king, the priests had a hidden passage beneath the table, allowing them to sneak in and consume the offerings. When the priests exited, the king followed their instructions, placing food before Bel. Daniel instructed his servants to spread ashes all over the temple while the king was alone there. After they did so, they left, closing and sealing the door with the king's signet. Later that night, the priests, along with their families, came as usual and ate and drank everything in the temple. In the morning, when the king and Daniel arrived, the king asked if the seals were intact, to which Daniel replied affirmatively. When they opened the door, the king was astonished by the sight on the table and exclaimed praises to an entity named Obel. Daniel, however, chuckled and prevented the king from entering, asking him to observe the footprints on the floor. The king noticed footprints of men, women, and children, which made him furious. He then punished the priests and their families, sealing them in a hidden room where they had entered and destroying everything left on the table. Consequently, the king executed the priests and handed over Bel, presumably an idol, to Daniel, who demolished both Bel and its temple at the same location. Defeating the dragon and divine deliverance. In ancient Babylon, there was a magnificent dragon that the people worshipped with great reverence. The king, wanting to test Daniel's beliefs, asked him if he too would acknowledge the dragon's divinity, as it appeared to be made of brass and seemed to live, eat, and drink. But Daniel, steadfast in his faith, replied to the king, explaining that he worshipped a different god, who was truly alive. Daniel proposed a bold challenge to the king. He requested permission to prove the dragon's lack of divinity by defeating it without weapons. Surprisingly, the king granted his request. Daniel ingeniously crafted a mixture of pitch, fat, and hair, forming it into lumps. Then, he placed these lumps into the dragon's mouth. Soon after, the dragon split apart, destroyed by the concoction. Daniel proclaimed that the real gods worthy of worship were not idols like the dragon, but the living God he served. Upon witnessing this miraculous event, the people of Babylon became furious and plotted against the king, resentful of his acceptance of Daniel's beliefs. The king, once a follower of a different faith, now embraced Judaism. He was infamous for destroying the mighty bell and defeating a fearsome dragon. Additionally, he executed a priest who opposed him. This act angered some people, who approached the king demanding the release of Daniel, or else they threatened to bring him down. Feeling immense pressure from the people, the king reluctantly handed Daniel over to them. They promptly threw Daniel into a pit full of hungry lions, where he remained for 6 harrowing days. The den housed 7 lions, each day fed with 2 carcasses and 2 sheep, all meant to keep them satisfied so they wouldn't devour Daniel. However, this plan didn't guarantee Daniel's safety. Meanwhile, there was a prophet named Habakkuk, who was preparing a meal in the fields for the workers. Suddenly, an angel seized him by his crown and whisked him away to Babylon, placing him amidst the clamor of the city. A beggar then shouted to Daniel, urging him to accept the meal that God had sent his way. Daniel spoke, saying, "You have remembered me, O God, and you have not abandoned those who seek and love you." Then Daniel got up and ate, and the angel of the Lord returned Habakkuk to his place. On the 7th day, the king went to mourn for Daniel. When he reached the den and looked inside, he saw Daniel sitting there. Overwhelmed, the king cried out loudly, praising the greatness of the Lord, the God of Daniel, acknowledging that there is no one like him. The king then pulled Daniel out of the den and threw those who had plotted against him into it. They were immediately consumed before the king's eyes. What are your thoughts on the additions to the book of Daniel? Let us have your opinions in the comment below.